Page 414. We are going to learn Parshat Vayishlach. You're right.
I have enough time?
I mean Vayeshev. I'm sorry.
Vayishev, yes. I apologize.
No problem. You can, if you have to, you can do it.
We missed a week.
And Parshat Vayeshev is 414. This Parsha is about the selling of Joseph. Let's read a little bit and we'll start, and then we'll talk.
Yaakov settled in the land of his father's residence in the land of Canaan. This is history of Yaakov. Yosef.
We stop right here. This is the history of Yaakov, Yosef. Ele toldot Yaakov, Yosef. Really, that's not the right translation in many places is not history. The right translation here is the generations of Yaakov. Toldot means generations. Yosef. What does this mean? From Jacob's point of view, who is his continuation? It's Joseph. Why? Because his wife that he was supposed to marry was Rachel. That was his bashert. The oldest to the oldest, the youngest to the youngest. That he went to Haran to marry Joseph. To marry Rachel, I'm sorry. Meanwhile, by accident, he married another 3 women, had another 12 children. I mean, the accident is a joke. It wasn't an accident, but that was not the purpose. And therefore, the moment Joseph was born, he told Laban, I fulfilled my mission, I can go back home, because Joseph is born. That's my continuation. Jacob looked on Joseph, this is the next Rebbe. It was Abraham. Isaac took over from Abraham, even it was another son, Ishmael. Jacob and Esau, Jacob took over from Esau, from Isaac. Who will take over after Jacob? Joseph. Joseph is the next leader.
So he's like the firstborn, in a sense.
He's the firstborn of Rachel.
Right.
Who's his first?
And no, by firstborn you go after the mother. Then Jacob in essence had 4 firstborns. But from Rachel, from the union of Rachel and Jacob, Joseph was the firstborn. That from Jacob's point of view, he was the firstborn. Meanwhile, he had other children. That's nice and fine. He has nothing against them. But his goal is Joseph.
But it's curious because with Abraham, we have the generation, and it just means Yitzhak. And then with Yitzhak, there's the generation, and it names both Esau and Jacob. In this situation,
he names only
Joseph, which is very curious because, obviously all of them do carry on the line, even though, because Esau has been mentioned. I mean, I've read different things on that.
Yeah, but what I mean to say is, what I want to point out that here he was concentrating, the Torah wants to tell us why, basically, here is the answer, why Jacob favored Joseph. It wasn't just because, he liked him, he was the cutest boy. That was the continuation. And therefore Rashi later will say that he taught him all the Torah, he taught everything that he had. He looked like him. He was like Jacob. He was the continuation of Jacob. So, he was 17 years old.
Yosef, at the age of 17 years, would tend the sheep with his brothers. And the lad was with the sons of Bela, and the sons of Zilpah and his father's wives.
Let's stop right here. The lad was with the sons of Bela. What does this mean? That Rashi says in the bottom of this page something very interesting. With the sons of Bela. See the Rashi?
Meaning that he associated with the sons of Bela because his brothers would demean them, but Yosef, would be close with them.
Here is the source and the soul of the whole story. There were four mothers, 4 wives. 2 were the wives and 2 were maidservants. The children of Leah looked on the children of the maidservant as second-class citizens and treated them like this. And Joseph was also a son of Rachel, of the wife. He couldn't take it. He said, what's going on here? If you think about it, this is the problem that was for generations, for forever. The whole Hasidic movement came about. Today is the 20th of Kislev. The 1920th of Kislev is a Chabad holiday. It's called the Rosh Hashanah for Hasidus. What does all Hasidic movement came about? In the time of the Baal Shem Tov, there were 2 classes, 2 societies in the Jewish people. the higher society and the lower society, the scholars and the simple Jews. And the scholars looked on the simple Jews like they don't exist. They have to be the slaves. Give me the money, I'm the king, I know how to learn Torah, who are you? Came the Baal Shem Tov and said everybody is equally important in the eyes of God. Obviously they didn't like it. That's what made the fight against the Hasidic movement. The whole fight against the Hasidic movement started because of this. And ultimately, that's why the first Chabad Rebbe was arrested, was reported to the government by... It's all the animosity was, how dare you take away from us our leadership? What do you mean everybody is equal? I learned Torah for nothing? I thought I'll be the rabbi, I'll be the leader, everybody will wash my feet, and suddenly everybody's equal? They couldn't stand it. That you see that the same fight that started right there from Joseph and the brothers was by the time of the Alter Rebbe, 215 years ago, 14 years ago, he came out from jail. Joseph ended up in jail because he was defending the children of Jacob, the children of Israel, and the Alter Rebbe ended up in jail because of this. The class warfare, that was the soul of the problem in the family. And that brings to the next line. Yosef brought back
bad reports about them to their father.
What's the bad report? If you look on the Rashi on page 417, 5 lines, it brings a few things, but it brings number 1, number 2. Go ahead.
For the slander he related about them, that they called their brother slaves, Yosef was sold as a slave.
He told about them. That's an interesting thing. They used to call the brothers slaves. They are the sons of the maids. They are slaves. And he called them slaves, but then he was actually sold for a slave because he reported it to his father. But what was the real source of the fight, one of the main reasons of the animosity between the brothers, was that, you need to understand, Joseph was raised by Bilhah. Joseph's mother, Rachel, died and she gave birth to Benjamin. Benjamin was, I think, 10 years old at that time. 10 or 7, I don't remember, but I think 10. Then when his mother died, Joseph was 10 years old. Joseph was 10 years old, or even younger. Who raised them? Bilhah raised them. That he was close with the children of Bilhah. That he couldn't stand the idea that they treat them like second-class citizens. He was a part of them. He was, what do you mean? It's my brothers. How could you do such a thing? And this is the problem until today. We have that people look at each other down, and we are more important. You are less important. It's all the same issue since the beginning. Nothing changed. The story is the same story.
When Esau and Jacob confronted each other, then afterwards they left.
Mm-hmm.
And then how soon afterwards did Rachel die in childbirth?
Rachel died
Before that.
No, not before that. After that, right after.
Yeah.
After that. When exactly, I don't know, but right there, because it's written that she died right when they entered the land of Israel. Mark, you can have a little bit.
One reason I say is I thought I remember somebody saying that he was, because he stood up in front of Rachel, because Esau,
You're
he
right.
was 6 or something. That's why I
Could be. It could be he was 7. That means that he was 7 and now he's 17. And 10 years earlier, that happened 10 years later. Then that means that Benjamin was 7. That's what I said. I couldn't remember if he's 7 or 10. That makes sense.
Oh, Benjamin, yeah, sorry.
Benjamin was 7 in this case. If Joseph was 6 and his mother died and was almost 7, then that really was one of the main reasons for the fight into Joseph and the brothers. Now we'll continue to see what the other causes for the fight. 417, number 3.
Israel loved Yosef more than any of his sons, for he was the son of his old age.
Oh, okay.
What does that mean exactly?
Oh, Rashi says a few things. Literally means your youngest son. It's called in Yiddish a mezinik. A mezinik you love more than anybody. Don't your youngest child gets away with everything?
But he had Benjamin.
Yeah, Benjamin was there.
Shine, Benjamin.
Does he not count?
Not really.
Obviously.
when you have 12 children, that number 12 is also the youngest.
He was youngest before Benjamin.
That's why Rashi, in Benjamin was a big difference. Until Benjamin came around, it was already, Jacob didn't even have patience to give him attention, probably. But the Rashi brings a few meanings to this. Number one, Rashi says on page 417, number 3, the Rashi, son of his old age. Go ahead. Because
he was born to him in his old age.
number one. Doesn't make, not because Benjamin was not born when he was old, it means he doesn't like Benjamin. He loved Joseph because he was one of the youngest children. Doesn't have to be the youngest. One before the youngest could also be the youngest.
He was the youngest for a long time.
Exactly, and that's what makes him the youngest. Many people have families that the child was the youngest for a while. He behaves, even a child was born later, doesn't make a difference. He still behaves like the youngest. From his point of view, that's another child was born. That's not his problem. You understand? He behaves like the youngest. Then that's what he was the youngest.
So we're not
Then-
going to ask you who your youngest boy is.
My youngest boy? It's not a secret. Then another explanation.
Onkelos translates it, he was a wise son to him, because all that he, Yaakov, had learned from Shem and Aver, he transmitted to him, Yosef. Another explanation.
Then what does this mean? Jacob gave over all the Torah that he had. He had 12 sons, but who was his continuation? Who was his successor? Who was the next Rebbe, as I said before? Joseph. That's why he taught them everything.
He was the
Everything.
disciple.
He was the one who will continue he will give over. In Judaism there is the Masoret, giving over the tradition from generation to generation. And Maimonides brings in his introduction to his book, to this big book, Mishnah Torah, he shows 40 generations who transmitted the Torah from whom, and Joshua from Moses, and so on, and he brings names after names, all the way to the Talmudic rabbis. Then even there were many rabbis, but there was one chief rabbi that he was the one who transmitted the Torah from the generation before. The same thing is here. Who is the next one to move to transmit the Torah, whatever the Torah that was there that he learned from Shem and Aver, the believing God and everything that they did? Who is the next one? Joseph, that he taught Joseph.
Well, it could be argued that he wasn't the primary in himself because he's Tosephus. He's Tosephus. He's an addition. It's sort of that he's like a carbon copy. He's not like
Now you want to. I hear what you say. He's trying to learn from his Hebrew name. Yosef means an addition. That he was an addition. It means it's just an addition. But that's what every successor is an addition. He adds something to what it was before. And really, that's the meaning of every successor, of every leader, that he fulfills the place of the leader before. It's called in Hebrew memale makom. He fills his place, and he adds something of his own. He adds an addition. And that's really every one of them.
So was Joseph was not the only one to get the covenant, obviously. All the brothers got the covenant, right?
What?
What was Joseph inheriting? Was he inheriting a blessing? Was he
inheriting the leadership of the generation? It's the Torah. It's everything. Ultimately, I think he gave him, before he died, he gave him more blessings.
He gave each one of the brothers
Look,
blessings.
he got. There is a law in the Torah that a firstborn gets 2 portions of the inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say there is 10 children, then the first one will get, you divide it into 10, the first 2 gets the firstborn. And the rest get 8 pieces, and they have to divide it among them. The other 9, so to speak. Here, Joseph is the firstborn. Why? He got 2 tribes. Right? All other tribes got 1 tribe. He, as a firstborn, got a double portion. He got 2 tribes. That's from Jacob's point of view, Joseph is the firstborn. And that's how he's treating him. He teaches him the Torah, he gives him the special coat, and then he gives another explanation, number 3.
Another explanation that his Yosef's facial features were identical to his Yaakov's.
He looked like
Chip off the old block.
what does this mean?
He looked like him.
Just like him.
Just like his dad.
Just like his dad. Then, and you know where we see this story? If you remember, that we'll learn next week, if we will make it to this part of the story. And then he was seduced by Potiphar's wife. And it's written, and the Talmud says, then he stood up, he almost fell for it, and then it was basically, it was in front of a window or a mirror,
This is the image.
and he saw his own image, but his image was just like Jacob. That he suddenly he saw Jacob in front of him. That he remembered his father. He said to himself, "How could I do such a thing?" Then here we said, "Zkunim" could mean in Hebrew, if you play with the word, "ziv ekunin," they look like the father. Then physically he looked like his father. Spiritually he looked like his father. He was the continuation of his father. But you know, the other brothers don't like it. Then now that's why when he gave him, he made for him. We read here, he made for him a long, colorful coat. Everybody says, and the Talmud points out why he treated him nicer than the other kids, and it creates problems, and so on and on. Yeah, but Jacob had to give him the mantle of leadership. Jacob had to point out to the other kids that he's the next leader, that he gave him a special coat that was a mantle of leadership, like this makes him the Rebbe, this makes him the next leader. That's why he gave it to him, not because, oh, he likes him. People ask, Jacob didn't understand when you single out one of the children, you make tzoras. Jacob is just much as a chochem as all of us. He raised 12 children. After all, he didn't do such a bad job with all of them. The whole Jewish people start from them, right? From all of them. He didn't lose one of them. With Dinah, with all the tzoras that he had. He was in Haran, and he was raising... Jacob did not a bad job, that everybody says, every beginner psychologist, anybody who thinks is a psychologist says, oh, Jacob singled out one children out of others. He knew this scholarship and this psychology he understood too. He still did it because he felt he has no choice. He has to point out that he is the next leader. And he knew that Reuven, who is the oldest, and Judah, and this, and they will not like it. He knew that. But what is he going to do? That's the destiny. That's meant to be. He's destined to be the next leader.
Isn't this just the opposite of the other stories? In all the other stories, the oldest is replaced by the youngest.
Here is interesting. No matter how you slice it, it's Joseph. If he's the youngest, he should be the leader. If he's the oldest, he should be the leader. He had a very interesting combination. He was the oldest and the youngest.
In a sense, he's the only successful firstborn. In a sense.
You're right. All the other firstborn, he was always the youngest. You're right. But here it was maybe because he had the interesting combination. He was the oldest and the youngest. The Torah says he was the youngest. He was the youngest son. That's why he calls him. On the other hand, he was the oldest of Rachel. When you're the youngest of your father and the oldest of your mother, it works out.
That makes sense. That's the highest and the
There are
lowest.
four mothers.
Huh?
Well, here there's four mothers, so it's a little.
Yeah, I mean to say,
Well, that's
no
it.
matter how you slice it, but it was, from a Jewish point of view, from a halachic point of view, he has such a firstborn as to have a pidyon ben. It's considered the firstborn. That the father had another 3 women, he had children with them. Has nothing to do with this. It goes the first womb of the mother, not of the father.
In that sense, essence, it's sort of what we were talking about before, the highest and the lowest.
You're right. It's the highest and the lowest. Number 4, Dr. Kosov, if you don't mind.
His brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, and they hated him. They could not speak to him peaceably.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, they cannot. They thought he loved them more. That's the bottom line. And no matter how you look of it, it doesn't look good and doesn't sound good. I mean, the brothers don't like it. Go ahead.
Yosef had a dream, and he told his brothers, and they hated him even more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream that I dreamt. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the middle of the field. Behold, my sheaf rose and stood up straight. And behold, your sheaves surrounded it and prostrated themselves to my sheaf." His brothers said to him,
Oh, okay. Let's stop right here. First of all, he comes with a dream, right? First of all, the first question is why are you saying they know they hate you? Why are you going to
Exactly.
do
Why are
it?
you saying this?
Rub it in.
Number 1. Number 2, realize what he did. He just told him the dream. What happened later? Number 8. Go ahead.
His brothers said to him, "Will you then be a king over us? Will you indeed rule over us?" They hated him even more because of his dreams and his words.
Then, what happened there? He said nothing. He just came with a dream, right? He didn't say anything. They, on their own, they translated the dream. They explained what the dream means. They made their own ruling. They all ruled it themselves. They sentenced themselves. You understand what happened
Oh,
there?
yeah. It makes total sense of it.
He didn't say anything. He just brought raw material. So I saw a dream. There the sheaves are standing and all of your sheaves. Fine. They could just tell him, oh, Shine, you have a dream. Tomorrow I have a better dream. They didn't have to say what it means. They didn't have to give a translation to the dream. They didn't have to explain the dream.
Yeah, but he's asking for trouble just by saying.
I know. But here it's a known thing about dreams that the way if you don't pay attention to them and you don't make any issue about it, you don't speak about it, it'll be forgotten. It'll be disappearing from the face of it's nothing. The moment you start to speak about it and you start to explain it and you start to make an issue from it, you're kind of fulfilling it.
Isn't this a prophecy, though?
Yeah,
Oh.
that's I think that's the issue, though. Isn't there two types of dreams? One is like a prophecy. The other is
You're right, you're right.
the other comes from your own thoughts, your own ruminations.
You're
and
right.
The brothers thought that it was the second, that Joseph wanted to dominate them.
I
rather
know-
than
I know
accepting
that.
it was the
But-
prophecy.
That's the explanation why Joseph came to them. Joseph came to them because by Jewish law, a prophet who doesn't deliver his prophecy deserves death. That Joseph, for him, it was a prophecy, and he had an obligation to tell the dream. That's why, even he knew they were going to hate him, he had to tell them that. On the other hand, Joseph was kind of begging them, not necessarily to translate it, to explain it in this way. If they would figure out the dream in a different way, maybe the realities would be different. It wouldn't happen the way they created by their saying it and then explaining it. They created this reality.
It's no different than we've seen that with other Moshe, who says, "Take my name out," and then his entire name is taken out of an entire part.
You're right. There is, for example, the best example is there is the Baal Shem Tov says something the Baal Shem Tov or the Mag says something very interesting, that a person, nobody can judge a Jew. No one in the world. Even God himself doesn't want to judge him. And what do we do? What is it God is doing? God brings to the Jew the same situation and he makes him judge it. Let's say Mr. A stole money. Now God brings in front of Mr. A that Mr. C stole money. And Mr. A says about Mr. C, this is terrible. How could he steal money? He should be punished for such a thing. Goes on and on, fine. This is restored on the camera, there's everything recorded. When Mr. A is being judged for his stealing, God says, I didn't say anything. We'll see what Mr. A said about himself. Whatever he said to do should be done to other people will apply to him. You judge yourself. Where we see it, there is a story in the Bible that shows
King
it
David.
more than
Nathan.
everything.
King David.
Yeah, King David and Nathan. What happened there? King David was a story with Bathsheba. Then came Nathan. He took Bathsheba from her husband. Then came Nathan, told him a story about a sheep, a man who had one sheep, and somebody had 1,000 sheep, and the person stole the one sheep, and he slaughtered it. David got all worked up, and he said, he should be punished by that, I think he said. Then by then, Nathan looked at him and told him, you're the man. Why Nathan had to trick him into it? It wasn't a trick just
He was being
to
gentle.
get him. It was a way he couldn't judge him. He needed to put in front of him a situation, and he judged it, and then said, now it's applied to you. The same thing is here. What happened here, Joseph didn't say what's going to be. They said that they are bowing down. They judged, they wrote their own sentence, their own destiny, that they will bow down. And then comes the second dream with the same story. Go ahead.
He had another dream and told it to his brothers. He said, behold, I dreamed another dream. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars were prostrating themselves to me. He told it to his father and to his brothers. His father rebuked him and said to him, What is this dream that you dreamed? Shall I, your mother, and your brothers come and prostrate themselves on the ground to you?
Okay, now the father translated. The first time they got the hechsher of the brothers. This time the father gave the stamp. He gave the second translation. Now he made it. The brother said, we going to." The brother spoke about himself. The father spoke about him now. Now the father and the brother will have to bow down. We see it later when in Parshas Miketz, the next week's Parsha, when they actually came to Joseph and they bowed down to him. Then there is an interesting line there.
Can I ask you a question about dreams real quick?
One second. Let me finish my sentence. Number 472. Actually, 471. In the top of 471, the second line.
Joseph's brothers came and they prostrated themselves to him, with their faces to the ground.
Okay, Joseph's brothers bowed down to him. Now turn to page 472, in top of the page. In top of the page 472.
Joseph recalled the dreams, and he had dreamed
Joseph
about...
recalled the dream that he dreamt for them. The first Rashi, that he had dreamt about them. Don't skip this. He knew now the day the dreams were fulfilled, for they had bowed down to him.
Mm-hmm.
See? That the dreams were fulfilled. But who made the dreams a reality? It's their fault. They cancellated. Who asked you to talk? My father used to teach me always, don't predict anything bad. If you have nothing good to say, don't say anything. You're better off not saying anything. They translated the dreams. The first time the brothers, the second time the father. Eventually the father came too. He came to Joseph and he bowed down to Joseph. He bowed down actually before he died, he bowed down to Joseph.
But if Joseph is supposed to be the leader, why is the father all upset about it here?
The father is not upset. The father is upset that because he creates animosity. That's what the father was upset. And if you look on page 420, in top of the page, the text, Cohen, 420, in top of the page.
His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind.
What does this mean? Look the Rashi, number 11.
Kept the matter in mind. He waited and looked forward when it would
When
come
will,
to be fulfilled.
Exactly. He wasn't angry. He had to show a face because the brothers were so upset. And he basically told Joseph maybe a few less dreams wouldn't be such a bad idea. But he knew that this is going to be, he was waiting. He knew that's going to happen. Then you're right. If Joseph knew it's going to happen, right, well, where was the problem? If Jacob knew he's supposed to be the leader, where's the problem? I'll tell you my commentary to this. Solomon was, back to the story of David. Solomon was born from Solomon was the next king. Obviously, that was the will of God, that Bathsheba had to marry David, right? And the Medrash brings explanations, thousands. That what they want from David. David was doing, it's supposed to be. If this would be a terrible thing, the next king wouldn't be born from, and about Solomon it's written that in his time there was peace in the world and he was building the Holy Temple, right? If he would be the wrong person. God wouldn't build the temple to his end. The first temple of the Jewish people and the fire of God came down. I mean, God cooperated 100% with this, right? Obviously, that was the right person. And what is everybody upset with David? David didn't have to push it. God wants to have a Bathsheba marrying David and Solomon. Leave it up for God. Joseph has to be the leader. It has to come by itself. The brothers have to recognize that Joseph is the leader. You understand? It cannot be forced from above. A Rebbe has to become, the Hasidim has to want them to be a Rebbe. If he's a Rebbe just because his father said that he should be the Rebbe, bad news. Most of the Chabad Rebbes never wrote any will who should be the next Rebbe. Because if he can be a Rebbe, he will be. And if he's not capable to be a Rebbe, no wills are going to help. Because the same thing here, Joseph was a leader, eventually became a leader on his own, without his father's help, I think. Pharaoh found him, Pharaoh made him a leader, he ruled the world on his own, don't push it. Same thing, David. Bathsheba's supposed to marry you. Uriah went to war. It would be another month, maybe. He would be killed. Hashem, leave it up for God. Don't try to make it faster than it's supposed to be. You have to try your best, but don't go in strange ways and do it. Could be that the story with Rebecca and Jacob, with the blessings, if the blessings belong to Jacob, right? Somehow Isaac would give it to Jacob. That not always is the best way to push things. You have to try your best, but when you say that es geht nicht, it doesn't work, let it go. It's going to work out. Then that's where Jacob knew that he's the leader. You're right. Teach him Torah, no problem. But don't start to force the brothers to make him. They should accept him as a leader. They didn't want to. Everybody saw they don't want to. Give it time. They will run to him. They will have nothing to eat. They will run to him. They will do anything for him. What was your question about dreams? I'm sorry. Still remember them?
Well, it's maybe stupid. If Joseph gives his dream, okay, to the brothers, and the brothers interpret it, so the dreams go by the interpretation. Then let's say another set of people listen to the same dream.
The dream was about the brothers. They were the one to give. They were one of in charge to give the interpretation.
Right.
I cannot decide the destiny for you. I can only decide the destiny for myself. That if the dream belongs to you, my interpretation will have very little meaning. Your interpretation will have a lot of meaning. You understand? We cannot decide the destiny of other people. We can only decide the destiny of ourselves. We have no control over others. Go ahead.
If Jacob, as it says here, interpreted the dream that he waited and looked forward when it would come to be fulfilled, then why did he pine all the years after Joseph? He thought he was dead and he would never see him again. But if he
even worse, because he knew that he's destined to have such dreams and this has to be fulfilled, that he pained that these dreams were not fulfilled.
But on the other hand, couldn't one say that the dream must be fulfilled? Why would Hashem?
Everything must be, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. If people have free choice and people can mess up things, then more than that, as we're going to learn soon, Jacob sent him to check out his brothers, right? Jacob couldn't forgive himself that he sent them. Jacob was sitting, the Medrash says, he was thinking to himself, is the way that it was like knives in his stomachs. He couldn't forgive himself. I knew that the brothers ate him. Why I sent them? Then Jacob blamed himself for this. In top of it, and it's interesting. Usually, the nature of as Rashi, if we'll ever make it to this Rashi, usually a person dies. The beginning is very painful, and as time passes, time cures the pain. That Jacob couldn't relax, he couldn't get over it. To himself, it was a sign that he's alive. Something is not right here. He couldn't find closure. He was constantly mourning, constantly getting upset about it. That was a sign for him that it was not a normal situation.
Rabbi, I have a question. Friday in Shabbat service, you said that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob
Lived together 15 years.
15 years.
Mhm.
How old was Isaac when Jacob was born?
How old was Isaac and Jacob was born? Isaac was 60 years old. It's written in the text. Right here. It's written.
How that can be?
How could it be?
Yeah.
Today, many 60-year-old men have babies.
And more miraculous is Abraham having one at the age of...
Men? The question is how old the women is, not how old the man is. I mean, I know myself people who had children by the age of 60. Right here in Solon, you don't have to go too far.
Why did you make this comparison, the movie and this? I tried to explain it to my family, and then they put me in a corner.
Okay, well, we'll leave it for we'll give it an explanation. On page 278, it's written clearly, Yitzchak was 60 years old when she, Rivka, gave birth to them, to the two children. Absolutely.
Right, 60.
60, 60.
Right, how they were together for 15 years.
Why not? What's the problem? Abraham died when he was 175.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And Isaac was, when Isaac was 100, right? That
Yeah.
between, then now Abraham is 160. But you have, if Isaac is 60, that
Okay,
Abraham
I
is
got it.
160.
Okay.
Then by 175, Jacob and Esau were 15 years
You
old.
said 60, I thought 6. Okay.
6? No.
That's why I say,
Page 420.
That would be a miracle.
Too much of a
that's
miracle.
why. Okay.
We'll continue on 420, number 12.
Number 12. His brothers went off to pasture their father's sheep in Shechem. Israel said to Joseph, "Aren't your brothers pasturing the sheep in Shechem? Come, I will send you to them." Joseph said to him, "Here I am." Israel said to him, "Go please and see after the well-being of your brothers and the welfare of the sheep, and bring me a report."
That's interesting what is happening here. We read before in the Rashi, that, in the text, that he used to bring bad reports to his father. Right? Here God, his father tells him, go and check out the well-being, shalom, of your brothers, and bring me a report. Basically, bring me a good report. You can even say that he tells them, go make peace with your brothers. You're in a fight with your brothers. You bring me bad report. Go bring me some peace. Make peace with them and tell me how well they're doing and bring me a report back. A man found.
He sent Yosef from the depths of Chevron, and he came to Shechem. A man found him going astray in the field. The man asked him, "What are you seeking?" He said, "I'm looking for my brothers." Tell
Let's
me.
stop right there. Wow. First of all, a man met him. The Rashi says it was Gabriel, like an angel. And he asked him basically, where are you going? It was a kind of a question. Where are you going? Do you know where you're going? What are you looking for, Tzoras? What is Joseph saying?
I'm looking for
I'm
my
looking
brothers.
for my brothers. Something like this reminds you of something in the Bible? Something different?
Yeah, in the beginning with Abel and Cain. Yeah,
What
where-
Cain said?
My brother's
brother's
keeper.
I'm my
keeper.
brother's keeper.
I'm my brother's keeper. This is an atonement for I'm my brother's keeper. I'm looking for my brothers. That's, if you want, what the slogan of Chabad is. This is the slogan of Chabad.
So you're saying that that Joseph is a reincarnation?
I don't say it's an incarnation, but I'm saying that this is for sure a correction. Could be it's kind of Kabbalah. It's written that this reincarnation. This is the opposite of what was written in with Cain and Abel. Cain said, "I'm my brother's keeper." Also about brothers. He said, I'm looking out for my brothers. That's what all of us have to do. As Achai or Neichim Evakish, you have to look out for our brothers. Not for ourselves, for our brothers. And that's what he tells them. And that's Joseph lived up to this statement all the way to his last breath of his life. Even they sold them. Not only forgive them, when we want to learn some in the Tanya, in the Alter Rebbe, he writes, then when he says, he talks about forgiving, not holding a grudge, that he says you should learn from Joseph and his brothers. How Joseph, he repaid with good for bad. Not only didn't, there's one thing to hold a grudge. The better level is not to take revenge. That's number one. The real guys take revenge. Number two, they're holding grudge to get rid of your grudge. You are here and I'm here. We have a nice day. I'm not against you. Joseph paid with good. He saved them. Not only he saved them, he made sure they shouldn't feel bad about it. What he told them, you meant to do maybe bad, but actually God meant it for good. Don't be upset about it. Twice in the Bible, maybe 3 times, it tells them, don't be upset about it. This is something that unheard of, such a level. When he said, I'm looking for my brothers, he lived up to this statement all the way, until the end.
Well, it seems almost like when he says, here I am, it's almost like he's created a GPS system that he's... I mean, it's not even a question of,
No,
where are you? He's stating, I'm ready
to do whatever you tell me. And you're right, and in Naini is written by quite a few, by a few people, by Avram, by many people it's written in Naini. They said to God, they said, yeah. But here is no question that, okay, let's continue. Tell me, please.
Tell me, please, where are they pasturing? The man said, they have traveled on from here. For I heard them say, let us go to Dothan. Yosef went after his brothers and found them in Dothan.
They left. He had a perfect excuse to go. He fulfilled his father's mission. He could come back to his father, so I couldn't find them. They left to another place. I went. He told them, go to Hebron. Fine, he went. He came back. They are gone. Joseph had a mission, and he was destined to do, he was determined to do the mission, to fulfill it. Okay.
So if this wasn't the angel, Gabriel, you kind of...
No, Rashi said it's Gabriel. Go ahead.
Right. Well, but the way you said it was, Rashi said,
No.
I mean, it's interesting that whoever this man is, this was probably the most important thing he did in his life.
This man.
Yes. Is
Trying
to
to
tell
stop
Joseph, be a directional signal, a navigational signle for Joseph. I mean, we think about, the purpose,
the purpose of a person. Yeah,
Yes.
No question that he fulfilled his purpose. Yeah, what you say is there is a statement from the Baal Shem Tov that a man goes down to the world for 70, 80 years to do one favor to one person. The only problem is we don't know which person and which favor. That's a small trouble. And therefore, every time when a person comes to ask you for a favor, you feel guilty. Because maybe this is the person and this is the favor. Because we know the story from Esther in the Megillah, when Mordechai sent her to the king and she hesitated to go, that Mordechai told her, maybe that's why you are here. That's your moment in history. If you mess this up, and you saw, we all know people that made the right choice in the right time, and they were remembered in history. And some people messed up in the right moment, and later they beat themselves up, and it was too late. You missed that and finished. Everything is for sure it's destined and it's bound by God, but you see it in life. Happens many times. Okay, they saw him.
They saw him from a distance, and before he approached them, they were plotting against to kill him. One man said to another, here comes the dreamer.
One man said to another, here comes the dreamer. We cannot wait until we learn the whole story to tell you this. They were 10 brothers. Officially, all 10 sold them. But let's think about it. The children of Bila and Zilpah loved them, right? Because he protected them, he defended them. That's what we learned before. Then you take a 4. 4 out of 10 have gone. As we learn in a minute from now, Reuven said, why killing him? Let's save him. And the Torah says he wanted to save them. To save him. That's why he did it. Let's put him in a pit, but he really wanted to save him. That Reuven wasn't in the agenda to kill him. Judah sold them, and he said the same thing. Why to kill him? Let's sell him. The Judah didn't want to kill him. Issachar and Zvulun, nobody even asked them. They were like, who are they? The 4 older brothers who were running the show. Yeah, then who said to each other? Rashi said later, by the end of this parsha, by the end of the book of Genesis, Rashi said Shimon told Levi. That's why when Joseph arrested one of the brothers, he arrested Shimon. Why Shimon? Because Shimon was the one who wanted to kill him. That from the whole 10 brothers, it's much simpler. And Shimon and Levi are the 2 brothers who killed the whole city of Shechem. Shimon and Levi and Jacob, when he blesses the 10 sons, Shimon and Levi says, don't want to be mentioned. He curses their anger of Shimon and Levi because they were the one. And from the whole mess, it's not the 10 brothers sold one. They are blamed for it because they didn't defend them, but they didn't want to sell them. Shimon ish vayemer ish Elochiv, one said to another, one man said to another, Shimon told Levi. Why the Torah doesn't say it here? Who did it? Not to embarrass them. To make it a general thing. They said, one said to another, the Torah could say, Shimon told Levi. The Torah purposely doesn't say it. And there is quite a few places that the Torah doesn't say it. And there is even about other things. There is a story in the Bible about the man who went to chop wood on Shabbat and he was killed. Right, by Moses. That Rashi, that the Talmud says, Rabbi Akiva said, that who was it? Tzlofchad, right? Then another, I think Rabbi Shimon, I don't remember which, another Talmudic rabbi asked him, the Torah covered this up and you uncover it? The Torah did it for a purpose. Why are you uncovering it? The Rebbe once spoke about it. The same thing is here. The Torah covers it up and Rashi says later who it was. At that time, you can embarrass somebody, the Torah covered this up. Generations later, when there is no tribe of Shimon separately, and a tribe of this, and the descendants of Tzlofchad, the daughters of Tzlofchad are not around, and the great-grandchildren, at that point it's not a matter of embarrassing somebody, it's a matter of teaching. It helps us to understand the story and to understand and learn something from Shimon's behavior, from Levi's behavior, and so on, then it's worth it to point it out.
It's like declassifying.
That's why they do it even, you're right, they do it 50 years later or something like this. The same thing, the rabbis declassified them, but the Torah covered this up, exactly. Then they told them, go ahead, please.
So the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah are still back on the ranch, aren't they? I mean,
they're here together with them. They're all there.
Okay.
Everybody's there. Everybody went to. They were all shepherds. The only one who was not a shepherd was Joseph.
Benjamin?
What about Benjamin?
Benjamin was 7 years old.
That kid just doesn't go anywhere.
A little boy. Now, in more than that, you can see that Jacob kept Rachel's. You need to understand, Rachel died. There are 2 orphans. He kept them by him. He didn't want to let them go. But more than that, Chassidus explained that was the real argument. What's the soul of the argument? The spiritual argument between the brothers and Joseph. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were shepherds. They served God in nature. It's much easier to be a Jew in nature, right, than be a Jew in downtown. Joseph said, we have to take Judaism to the next step. To live in the city and serve God in the city. The brothers said, no. We have a traditions of 3 generations of shepherds. You're going to alter history? Maybe we'll lose Judaism. When you go to downtown, you might lose the whole thing. I mean, who knows if they'll survive as believers in God? They'll be influenced by the idol worshippers. They will become like everybody else. The in thing to do is not to believe in God at that time, not even today. That they were afraid, they felt that Joseph is taking Judaism the wrong direction. They felt that they have to get rid of him, because if they don't get rid of them, they will lose Judaism. And in their history, when they came later to Egypt, they told Pharaoh, we were shepherds. They didn't give up on the job. Joseph was a leader. He was the ruler. He was in the middle of and he raised 2 Jewish children there, in downtown, not being afraid, in the capital city of Egypt. Egypt was considered the lowest of the lowest of a moral behavior. And he raised there 2 good Jewish children. And what ended up to be the rest of the Jews, the children of the 12 tribes of the sons, they didn't continue the father's way of being shepherds. They became the movers and shakers of Egypt, of the Egyptian economy. They joined Joseph's philosophy. Then it was really on a deeper level, it was an argument of where are we taking Judaism? When the Rebbe started to send out Chabad rabbis 60 years ago to all over the world to spread Judaism, the rest of the religious community was fighting it. What do you mean? What's going to be if the rabbi joins the crowd, shaves his beard, and starts to enjoy life? Who says he will make them more religious? They will influence them. And it was a huge risk. They said, let's be shepherd, let's segregate. We'll be in Meir Sheorim, in Cleveland Heights, in our own little shtetl, in ghettos, and we protect ourselves. The Rebbe said, no, we have to go and bring the belief in God everywhere. We cannot afford to sit in our ghettos. And ultimately, If you sit in your ghetto and you don't influence, you are being influenced no matter what. You lose your ghetto too. But that was again the same argument as we saw before about the class war between the two societies that Hasidus was fighting with the same issues that Joseph and his brothers. Here is again the same argument. The world didn't change. It's always the same issues. You know, we might have computers, an iPhone, a smartphone, but who we are, it's the same story. And that was the argument here. Let's continue. I think we are on number 20. Yes. Mark?
Oh. Now let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. And we will say that a wild beast devoured him. Then we will see what will become of his dreams.
Wow. We'll see what will come of his dreams. We'll see. You see, the dreams bother them more than everything. The dreams. It's not the colorful coat also, but the dreams. We should be your slaves.
Why did these brothers want to kill him? Did they have? Were they just impassionate?
No. First of all, it brings bad news to the father. It makes them look bad than the father. Then, as I told you, from a spiritual point of view, they felt that he's taking Judaism the wrong direction. But for sure, it was a terrible thing. What do you want me to justify this business? I am not going to.
But they could have all agreed to sell him as a slave. I mean, they didn't have to kill him.
That was already. They saw what happened. They didn't think about it. They saw a caravan of people passing by. They said, "Let's sell some for a slave." These are impulse. They are not planned ideas. Let's kill him. Then some for a slave. You're right. If they would have a meeting and they would sit down, they didn't have the plan to get rid of him. They saw him. They got the impulse to kill him.
It's the new Cain, so to speak, or new Cains.
Listen, if you look at all this, I mean, all the brothers or the rivalries in the Bible, it's getting actually better. The first rivalry was Cain killed Abel. Then it was Abraham and Isaac and Ishmael, right? They made peace when Abraham died. It's written that by Abraham's funeral, Ishmael and Isaac buried them. They made, the people who make peace when the father dies or the mother, they come to the funeral and they make peace. Then it was Jacob and Esau. They made peace while the parents were alive. Esau kissed them and hugged them. Then it was Joseph and the brother. Not only they made peace, Joseph paid good for bad. Then the ultimate brothers are Moses and Aaron. They were like inseparable. They helped each other. Not only they didn't fight, Aaron was happy when he saw that Moses becomes the leader. That's the ultimate of the ultimate. Then from this point of view, if you think about it, the world is going into a gooder place. How things develop, they're becoming better and better and better. It's a very optimistic look on life. Things are getting better.
But what's interesting here is that their focus on killing him is really kind of solely because of the dreams. The implication.
So?
Because they're trying to prevent the prophecy.
Yeah. Killing is a bad thing. Yeah, I know.
No, but they're not killing him because they don't like him as much as the fact that it's the dreams.
No, you're right. They didn't want to eventually he should become the king over them. Yes, you're right. 4:23.
Reuben heard and rescued him from their hands. He said, "Let us not kill him."
Let us not kill him. Okay, continue.
Reuben said to them, "Do not commit bloodshed. Throw him into this pit, which is in the wilderness, and do not lay a hand on him." His purpose was to rescue him from their hands, to bring him back to his father.
Reuben wanted to bring him back to his father, right? He wanted to save him. But he says, let's put him. He said his plan was later to come and to save him. What happened later? I don't want to miss this point because it's an important one. What happened later? Reuben left. And they meanwhile sold them. Reuben came back to the pit. It was Reuben.
He was doing tshuva, supposedly because of his father's bed.
Repenting, right?
Or that it was his turn for helping his father out.
He was repenting.
First time.
The Rebbe pointed out once, the Rebbe said once something very powerful. He was repenting. When a Jewish boy is in a pit, you don't go to repent. If he wouldn't repent, he would save Joseph. Then when you're busy with your own spiritual journey, meanwhile Jewish children are being lost. That's a very important lesson to us. Now, people are busy with their own. Some people made Aliyah to Israel because they want this, and everybody's busy with his own prayers and with his own this. When Jewish children are being lost, and it's happening every day, we cannot be busy with our own spiritual journey. If Reuven wouldn't be busy with his repenting, Joseph wouldn't be sold as a slave, and the Jewish people wouldn't end up in Egypt, and we would be a very happy family. It all came because he left. He put him in the pit and left. He was busy, had more important things to do. There are very important things, but there is nothing more important than saving a Jewish child, physically or spiritually. And the Talmud points out, Medrash says something very powerful. If Reuven would know that in Cheder, that in every Hebrew school, they would read in the Bible, Reuven wanted to save him, he would do a better job. If he would know that we will sit here around the table and we would read in the Torah and Reuven tried to save him, he would make a bigger effort. That, by the way, many times people say, I want to be anonymous. I don't want to. The Rabbi has to point it out. If Reuven would know, the Medrash says it, the Talmud says it, that everybody would know, he would do a better job. When people know that everybody is going to know about it, the effort is much bigger than if they do it something anonymous. Nobody will know what's going on. Okay, 424.
When Yosef came to his brothers, they stripped him of his coat, the long, colorful coat that he had
The
on.
coat, they got rid of the coat, they couldn't stand it.
They took him and threw him into the pit. The pit was empty, there was no water in it. They sat down to eat bread. They raised their eyes and saw.
What Joseph did when they threw him in? It's not written in anything, right? He laughed, he cried, he sang, he danced, he begged, he talked, nothing. You know where it's written? Next week's Parsha. When they started to have tzores, on page 475, when he told them, I don't believe you, you are liars, bring your youngest brother. 475, number 21.
They said to one another, in truth, we are guilty regarding our brother.
Next page.
We saw the anguish of his soul when he pleaded with us, and we did not listen.
He pleaded, he does not listen. Why is the Torah not writing it here that he pleaded, that he screamed? Why the Torah is only telling it what they said? Why not in the beginning? Because when nobody listens, it's like it wasn't said. Here they were sitting down to eat bread. They had a kiddush. Finished they put them in the plate and finished, they moved on. The Torah doesn't write anything. It doesn't. You know when they heard this crying? 22 years later, they heard this crying. Oh, we didn't listen to when he was. That's the first time they heard him. Took 20 years. Sometimes you hear something from somebody. Some adult tells you a smart thing, a lesson in life, and it registers 20 years later, saying, you know what? Now I understand what I heard. I learned. Took them 22 years to hear this cry. His cry. For 22 years, their ears were closed.
So why so heartless at this point? Why do they sit down for a meal while he's screaming in the pit?
They felt that he will take them down. He's kind of an informer to the father. They were afraid, according to some Midrashim, they're afraid the father will curse them. They knew that Jacob is a holy man, and he comes and he brings somebody who gives him an informer that goes to the teacher. Tattletale. And he goes to the father and he tells all the bad things about them, and eventually the father will curse them, get upset and curse them, and they might die because of it. Then such a guy, what in every group, when one guy informs another people, what do you do to him? In every class, in college, wherever it is, in the army, wherever you go, such a guy is in bad shape.
He's a snitch.
Exactly. Then I think that's what they felt about him. Listen, again I told you, we are not here to defend the story. That's what happened. You know what it is? What is this story? This story is about the Jewish family. The first Jewish family is such a dysfunctional story. The real problem of the Jewish people is the fights. You know, the King David, in the beginning of his book of Psalms, the second chapter speaks about his enemies. He says, the enemies, I laugh at them. God laughs at my enemies. They are nothing. Then in chapter 3, when he has problems with Avshalom, his son, he cries. The real problems are within the Jewish family. For the enemies, who cares what Iran says, what the UN says? Gurnish, that's small problems. The real problems are at home. When we fight, that this story is not about Joseph and the brothers. It's about us. We don't hear the cry of other Jews. A cry doesn't have to be necessarily a loud cry. If somebody is in pain and doesn't even know that he has to cry, it's even a more sad story. Somebody who doesn't know that he needs Judaism and he needs it, and we are relaxed. That the story is about us. The biggest problems of the Jewish people forever was always that we didn't have unity. We were in fights, and then it's a reminder to us what needs to be done. You know, there's a story about a woman was listening to the Torah reading in the synagogue. Story, they throw him into the pitch. He's crying and crying and crying. Next year, they read the story. She's not crying. Told the Rebbetzin, last year you felt so bad for Joseph. She says, last year he went and they sold him. Who told him to go again? Now I don't feel bad for him.